What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Her Lounge podcast. Y'all, I am solo today. I cannot believe that. I don't know that I've ever done a solo podcast. So if it is boring, I am so sorry. But with me traveling right now with hubby and then also Marissa went back to work. Uh so um and then coordinating with Rob has been a tad bit difficult. So I'm kind of just winging it, and I guess I shouldn't say winging it because it's scheduled with myself, but just kind of trying to find a rhythm here. So bear with me as I work on that, getting adjusted to Penny going to school, and now Sunny will start school, and then all the above starts to happen. You guys know I love to start with a positive quote. So with that being said, we delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve the beauty. And I think that's a lot to be said with social media. I think everybody shows all the good, 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 but nobody ever kind of tells you the behind the scenes or what's really happening in their home or whatever. It's just a picture perfect all the time, which is I think I've talked to you guys about that, how I feel about them. I'm always like, yeah, I never wanted my, personal, s Instagram to look perfect because my life isn't perfect and I'm not perfect, so, I mean, even on the podcast, I mean, I'll show up on here looking crazy. I've seen some videos sometimes and I'm like, "Okay, someone should have told me that I needed to put on some makeup, or something." Um, I know that I am a tad bit, I guess you can say, obsessed with, not obsessed, but, I love the whole transgender topic because it's concerning to me, because I guess I have kids and they're in school and, they're a part of the public school system now, and so I think a lot of things out there are happening for some change. And I think that we're finally kind of starting to see it. So Katie ISD yesterday held their board meeting, and sadly, I can't believe how close the voting was. Though. It was 4-3 with them having the decision was that they would have to inform parents whose children asked to be identified as transgender. Um, they'd have teachers have to report that now, and so I guess before, I'm assuming I don't know what the before is, I only know what's happening currently. I guess a teacher didn't have to report it or didn't have to tell a parent, so it's like it was a big controversy. I mean, there were students that were pissed. I don't know if you guys get a chance, if you just Google, if you're not from Houston and you're not familiar with the Katy area, so Katy ISD is known to be one of the better school districts also. So this was a big deal. Um, my friend Jackie from HTX Kids, she was really big on reporting about this. And sadly, a lot of people on both sides showed up, to kind of dispute and argue this whole situation. Um, but I guess at the end of the day, I feel like, common sense kicked in and they voted on even though it was a very close vote, 4 to 3, that now these teachers will have to inform parents. So I'm just gonna kinda talk a little bit about where this is gonna go and how these kids are so upset about it, and I'll go into, like, why this kinda triggered all this about talking about this. There was 100 speakers yesterday at that meeting, um, and so basically, it'll mandate the staff to the policy also mandates that staff use pronouns that correlate to the sex listed on a child's birth certificate unless they have written permission parental consent. So that means that teachers no longer have to, like, if they're a boy, they don't have to say "she" even though they identify as a "she." So the pronoun thing, they're no longer having to be forced to use them unless they have consent from the parent. So a child went on there and, talked all the shit that he could, or he, I don't really, she or he, I'm not sure what that person identifies at, and was, just saying that you know, now she no longer or he no longer feels protected in the school and it's not a safe place. And, what does this mean for their future? Well, absolutely nothing, kid, except for they're trying to make the best choices for you. You're a kid. Again, in high school, you still don't know like what anything. I mean, you think you're in love. I mean, I you think you're in love, you're gonna marry this person, and while it does happen, I get it, the high school sweetheart thing, but you know what I'm saying? There's so many things that go through your head at high school level where you're thinking you know it all and, you have it all figured out when in reality you kinda don't, you really still don't, and even sometimes as adults, I mean, hello, there are plenty of adults that I know that don't have their shit together and they're in their late 30s, still trying to borrow money from people because they don't have their finances together, you know? And I feel that's another issue we have in the school systems where we don't teach children about finances. We don't teach them about, how to like budget or how to pay taxes or how to like, balance a checkbook, which I don't know where we're going to go with the whole dollar situation not looking good anyway for us, but you guys know what I mean. I think a lot of people graduate high school not understanding the concept of how to balance a checkbook, how to like save, how to like pay bills and all of the above, and obviously, I don't think that a child in high school should be expected to already be doing those things. But if you've ever, at least have been given the foundation the same way we give our children at home the foundation of how to clean their room, how to wash the dishes, how to wash clothes, then I feel that that'll set them up for a successful future, one way or the other. Whether or not they make the right choices financially, you still gave them that path to making the right decisions. This is the same concept to me. You know what I'm saying? I always have said this time and time again. I feel that if you want to, as an adult, as somebody who's already kind of made their life, if you have decided as an adult that you would like to no longer be a female or a male, then that is your prerogative. And I think you should be able to do it because you're a grown adult and now you can make grown adult decisions. But from 4 years old all the way through high school, I think that you need to just allow your child to be a child. If your child if they're trying to feed you this thing that your child is going to commit suicide, perhaps what you should do as a parent or as a community, even if you have whoever your support system is let's try to see what we can do to help them so that there isn't suicidal thoughts. And again, explain to them that if in the future you're not against whatever their decision is, but you would like for them to wait until they are grown adults to make their own decisions. Because again, I don't feel that they have, the ability to make any of these decisions on their own. So instruction on gender fluidity is now strictly prohibited in classrooms, and students must now use bathrooms, locker rooms, and other sex specific spaces that correspond to their biological sex, which again, I've disputed this so many times. I'm so against this, like little boys or boys trying to compete in women's sports and vice, like it just doesn't make sense. We are not built the same. We will never built the same. If we were, one wouldn't have to take hormones and another wouldn't have to take testosterone. If we were all built the same, we wouldn't need to take all these drugs to transition into whatever. So whether or not you feel trapped in another body, I get it. That's fine. However, you need to wait until you're an adult to make those types of decisions because I feel it's child abuse when you start giving your child hormone blockers or even like, oh my God, y'all. I just saw this documentary, which I'm gonna see if I can add the link in the show notes. So if you're following this on the podcast episode, go check it out on the YouTube channel, subscribe to it. And in the show notes, I will put the link to this documentary. And here's the trippy part, guys. After I read about this thing happening in Katy, I went down a rabbit hole to look just to kind of see. I mean, I think we all know that there's always existed men who were transvestites, who were drag queens, or all of that. I think we've all known that. We didn't see again that many females um, transitioning to males as we see it now. That documentary that I'm telling you guys about had the statistic on there, and it was crazy because it said 1 in 30,000 men and 1 in 100,000 women seek treatment for gender dysphoria each year. So that means it's less common in women, it's more common in men to want to transition, but I think we're seeing it more in little girls nowadays. Um, to transition into little boys, and I'm not really sure where that convincing or that, thought has come into their head. I just don't get it. Like, if your child I've said this a gazillion times, and I'm repeating myself, I know that, but if your child shows that they're playing with dolls, let them play with dolls. You don't know. Maybe they'll grow out of it eventually. Maybe they'll, be it's just a phase. This documentary was funny or interesting because the crazy thing is that, these parents of these children, there were boys who were transitioning into little girls. One lady said she would catch her son, putting on her bras, and, they asked, "What do you wanna be when you grow up?" And he said, "A mommy." But again, some of these boys, didn't have their dad present, and so one completely transitioned at a very young age. I think they said he was the, first kid to transition in the world, and, she transitioned at as early as 12 years old, so I think that girl Jazz was even, younger when she did that, but, I mean, I don't feel that, boys should compete in girl sports. I don't think they should use the restroom. I don't know if you guys have seen, those, videos on TikTok of, like, transitioned, women who, like, go into the female restroom because they've transitioned into women because they feel threatened by men. But if you kinda look at it on the flip side, as a real woman, the reason we don't go into a male restroom is because we don't want to be attacked by a man, or we don't wanna we obviously don't pee in a urinal. So, the same way that this transgender female feels unsafe by going into the men's restroom dressed as a woman, then what makes him, her, because he's dressed as a woman, feel that we should be comfortable with him using a female restroom. You see how that doesn't make sense? We as w I have a problem with that because I have small little girls, and even my 15-year-old, she goes to the bathroom by herself. The other day when we went to the baseball game, I remember I couldn't find her, and I was like, "Mickey," and I was, like, calling her name, and, she had already gone outside and was waiting with my husband, and I said, "Hey, Mick," I said, "You know the rule, you're not allowed to get out the restroom until, we've kinda we've said, 'Hey, you ready?'" And she's like, "I know, I didn't see you," but I am terrified of that stuff because while maybe not every transgender woman is a pedophile, it's still kinda creepy to know there's a man in the women's restroom, at least for me. I don't know. Maybe you tell me what you feel. And I know that everybody feels like, or not everybody, but, some of y'all may feel like, "Well, what's the big concern?" Well, yeah, the big concern again for me is that my children use the restroom, and I don't want them to see a man inside the restroom just because they're dressed like a woman, because now this will bring other questions, which I'm not ready to explain to a 5-year-old yet because they're innocent, and I'd like to keep it that way until it's time for me to speak about any type of, like, sexual orientation or why someone is gay or why someone isn't gay. I obviously know that in the world I can't go their entire life, trying to protect them, but I know that right now as she is 5 and 2 that I'm able to control and, kind of give them a better understanding. Versus someone else trying to tell them, about this gender fluidity thing. So that's part of it. And that was another part that was kinda discussed inside in this board meeting with the KDISD in regards to, it not being, now if you're a boy, you gotta go to the boys' restroom. If you're a girl, you go to the girls' restrooms. You're not allowed to compete in each other's sports, which I feel is a great thing. Um some parents were arguing and saying like this was child abuse because now should a child have a problem, they're not gonna be able to go to a teacher without them feeling like they could trust the teacher because they know the teacher has to go report it to the, parent. But as a parent, wouldn't you want to know if your child, is trying to transition or is trying to or is feeling a certain kind of way, and as a parent, I guess I would feel like, "Well, damn, I must be doing something wrong, or there's gotta be some type of disconnection in my child being able to come to me because they're not able to talk to me about certain feelings that they're having, that they have to go to a teacher." And so I don't know, for me, that would make me question my parenting skills because I would feel like, "Why haven't you been able to talk to me about this, and why are you all of a sudden feeling this way when I've never heard you speak about it. I've never seen any type of weird mannerisms or anything that showed that you were possibly showing signs of being the opposite sex. I think for me, personally, being gay is different. Being a lesbian is different. I think you pretty much have figured out what it is your sex orientation is and what you like, and it is what it is. And I think that that is also something that I'm not saying that it must be easy for a parent to understand, but at least you know that, okay, well, my child is gay. This is their lifestyle, and this is where we're gonna have to navigate through it, and I'm not really sure where we're going with it, but, it is what it is, and that's what their preference is. But we're talking about a whole different sex change. We're talking about taking hormones. We're talking about, boobs growing on boys. We're talking about little boys, growing boobs and little girls talking like a man with a deep voice like this, and it's trippy to see that, and they get facial hair, then the chest hair comes out as well in this documentary that I'm telling you guys about. It's just trippy to see this. One of the little boys in there is transitioning into a girl. They're considering their hormones. They haven't started them, but he's letting his hair grow out. School's about to start, and he's wanting to go to school as a little girl, but it was afraid. And of course, the parents encouraged them. And so then they took her to go get highlights and get a haircut and totally condoned this. And so the interview is saying, like, do you think this is too soon or do you think you're making a mistake? And she doesn't feel like she's making a mistake because she says she's always known her son was not in the right body. She said she knew at 4 that she was a little girl. It was evident in all her pictures. What a great example, right? I was just thinking to myself like, "Ma'am, no. No, 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 and a no. It's a no for me again because at 4 years old, you don't know." This morning, perfect example, and I use these examples all the time because my daughter has a big imagination, and she'll go from being Wednesday Addams to Megan to a princess to Belly Beto. I mean, she's every character there possibly is. A while back, she used to be into this a cartoon called Vampirina, and so she was into it. I mean, my mom bought her the clothes, the tennis shoes, she had the toys, everything you can possibly think of. And then she was done with Vampirina, and then it went into Wednesday Addams. And so then this morning, I'm doing her hair, and she's watching her iPad, and she's watching the Vampirina cartoon. And I said, "Oh, are you back into liking Vampirina?" And she said, "Yeah." She's like, "I hadn't watched it in a long time, and it came up on my feed for her YouTube channel on her YouTube, I guess algorithm." And she's like, "So I started watching it again." She goes, "I forgot how much I missed it." And so she, for the longest, thought she was a vampire, like Vampirina, and that she could do bad things. Uh, so you know what I'm saying? That's where I I'm trying to get at is that our kids are all over the place when they are little. So another thing that they were kind of talking about in regards to this whole thing happening in Katy is, they also mentioned here, which was a good point, and I actually didn't know this, obviously, but they said that if minors cannot get birth control without parental consent, so parents should have similar authority over their child's sexual identity. So I didn't know you needed a parent's consent to get birth control. I thought I thought Planned Parenthood was just handing it out. I mean, they hand out condoms like it's nothing, so I just thought they were giving away birth control as well. But evidently, which I probably should look that up, I guess you need a parent's consent in order to get birth control. So the same applies to a child's sexual identity, which I agree. And then you had, of course, those who were against this policy, and of course, this is their r dispute or reason why they think this is just insane for us to implement in the school district. This person says, "This will weaponize our teachers under the guise of protecting our children." Okay, this is not protecting our children. This is injecting venom into our beloved school district. So this person actually believes that allowing these teachers to keep from their parents knowing that they're identifying as a she, him, or him, her, they, them, all of those pronouns that are out there that don't make sense. You can't be a them, you can't be a they, period. Stop with the nonsense, okay? Um, you're thinking that's injecting venom into our beloved school district. How silly do you sound as an educator? Seriously, how how silly do you sound? I mean, it just does not make sense at all. And so a lot of these parents that were here were for this because obviously either they have a child who's transitioning or a child who identifies as one of these pronouns or whatever the case may be. So they're it's done with. They have decided the vote, like I said, was um, 4-3, which I think is crazy that it was still that. Um, I mean, that close. It should have been given, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what it is. Um, so yeah, I don't know, like, I'm thinking this has got to just stop. Like, we have got to, as parents, we have got to get it together and start trying to um, speak out just a tad bit more in regards to like what is going on in the schools and what is taking place in our schools, especially if you're in a public school. I don't know. I'm not saying that private schools are the best and there's no problems there. I'm sure there are. But what I am trying to say is that I think that our public school system has a lot more shit to freaking focus on, like making sure your child can read, making sure your child can add, making sure, that we are teaching our kids how to be, kind and respectful towards each other. And instead, we're teaching about how you can go and protest, and you're teaching about how the American flag is no good and we don't even have them up in the classrooms, and instead you have a trans flag and every flag that represents every identity on this spectrum. And so it just starts to get out of hand, and at one point, at some point at least, you have to, as a parent or even just as a taxpayer, think to yourself, when is this going to stop? How much more of this silliness are we going to stop? I mean, are we going to continue to accept? Because you know, um, I fear for where my child's future is going to be because I'm not gonna be here forever, but I feel like we're going into this world where everything is going to be okay. It's going to be okay if, you wanna identify as a cat, as a dog. I mean, let's just talk about that man that spent I don't know how much money on turning himself into a dog so that he can be walked like a dog. I mean, it's ridiculous the things that are happening, and I guess they've always been happening, and maybe it's just come out to light a lot more now, but it just needs to just kinda have some kind of boundaries in the school, and I feel that this was a perfect example of what a school district should do because a parent should be informed at all times. I mean, in California, you don't have to tell a parent. As a matter of fact, if your parent doesn't agree with you, you're taken out. They can call CPS, and then you're no longer under your parent's care, and now you're in some random foster care system or program to help you transition. In reality, we all need our parents. And I know there's some fucked up parents out there. I get it, but in reality, we all need our parents' support. Like we are that support system for our children, and they turn to us for guidance. And if you're guiding your child to think that making these changes at such a young age is okay, you are the reason child abuse exists, because you are the child abuser. You are like just I mean, we're talking about a little girl, and you've just taken away her maybe one day, we don't know. I mean, you're 4. So maybe one day she was going to wish that you wouldn't have transitioned her, because she maybe now desires to be a mother, and you've given her these hormones, and now she'll no longer be able to carry her baby on her own, you know? Um, and for you as a parent to take that away from your child, I feel is a tad bit messed up. And and I hope that your child is not mad at you when they're older and decide to have a relationship with someone, because even if that person that child decides they no longer want to be, because if you do this, I feel the right way, which is let your child either A, grow out of it, B, let them tell you in the near future, like, "Mom, I really do feel like this is something that I want to do when I'm older. I feel like I don't want to, you know, I feel like a boy, I don't know that I'm ready for this." And you as a parent should probably sit down and be like, "Yeah, I don't know that you're ready for it either, but let's just kinda roll with it, see what happens, and then should they grow up to be gay, then that's what it is, but at least you didn't, like, torture their body with just venom, with these pills and, blockers and all of the above into their body." I mean, it just think about it. Look, I mean, we don't give our children certain stuff because heaven forbid that they have too much candy in a day, right? So why would you give them these pills that are going to block, you know what I'm saying, their puberty? Like, why would you even think that that is something you should be doing to your child at any point? And what makes you have that right to make those decisions for them? You as a parent need to really reevaluate where your state of mind is. Maybe you're really the one that wanted a daughter, or maybe you're really the one that wanted a son because you didn't have one. So now you're just like trying your best to transition these poor kids instead of you just sitting there, maybe having a legit conversation with them and getting to the root of it all. And, like I said, if should they turn out to be gay, then they turn out to be gay, but at least you didn't do any damage to their little bodies at such a young age by giving them these hormone blockers so that they can transition at such a young age. That documentary I was telling you guys about, I mean, the little girl was already kinda terrified of, um getting an injection. She was just like, "Oh, I'm so scared to get a shot. I'm so scared to get a shot." And so these are several shots that she'll have to get, and so she kinda is nervous about it. Yeah, most children, when they go to the doctor to get any type of vaccine, are pretty afraid. So imagine now this kid who's gonna have to sit through this and get this shot every time they go so that they can start feeling like a little girl is just ridiculous to me that you would put your child through that. I don't even like watching my child get any type of vaccines in front of me. I like turn away because I can't stand to see, their little faces as they're getting the shot, you know? So the fact that we're just allowing all this craziness to happen is it just frustrates me, and that is not the reason why I continue to speak about this. That's the reason why I continue to kind of make it a topic of mine, because if if you're not aware that this is happening, then you should be aware, because it could be around your child and you don't know it, or it could be around their a YouTube channel and you don't know that they're speaking about it on the YouTube channel they're watching. So a lot of these things are everywhere around us. I guess I'm always afraid for the day that Penny comes home and says, "Oh, mom, someone is trying to, transition." And I don't know what my response, to be honest with you, is going to be for that. But I'm probably gonna be very honest with her, and, and hopefully she doesn't go back that girl's crazy. She'll go back into the school and her classroom and be like, "Well, my mom said," and at that point, I'm sure she'll be in trouble. So, I just kinda wanted to talk a little bit about what was going on right now out here at the KDISD, and I'm just, very happy. I'm very happy that they stood up, that school district stood up and, did what was right. A parent should be involved and should know what is going on with their child, even at school. It's not they're not the school district responsibility to keep secrets from the parents. It's just not how it works, It's supposed to be a team effort. Teachers should work with parents. If you do have a concern about, someone's child, you should be able to go talk to the parent without it being weird or turning into something else. And like I said, I get it. There's some parents out there who are just messed up and they're just not there. They're not supportive. They're not involved. But I think we have more good parents than we have bad, and I think that, in when it comes to education, it has to be the teacher. If your child's going to public school or even if they're going to private school, there has to be a parent-teacher relationship, and you have to know your teacher, and you have to know, what's going on with your child and trying to understand if they're failing at something, why is that happening? What do we need to work on? Should there be some tutoring happening? Whatever the case may be, there should always be communication between a teacher and a parent. And so this just goes to prove to you that there is hope for the future and there is hope for a better education. And so I hope that more school districts start to look at this, and I hope more school districts start to like think this through and stop with the silliness. Like, stop with the silliness, you know what I'm saying? And perhaps the parents should educate themselves more on these blockers and what it does to their child's body before making that conscious decision of allowing their small child to transition. So, um with that being said, guys, don't forget that we have a Patreon, so come on over to the Patreon if you wanna get to another episode per week. Like I said, I am trying to kinda navigate my podcast again. There's been so many changes happening in life now with both my girls going to school and figuring out a schedule and figuring out how I'm gonna do everything. I'm also at the boutique. The fall is coming up, so or somewhat of a fall, right? I know it's like this weather doesn't help you feel like we're hitting fall, excuse me, but, I will be doing a lot of markets. The first one starts October 7th, and then I have another one right after that, and so I will have a post on my social media of all my markets coming up. I have a bunch of new stuff being added to, my store. Shout out to John who helps me making sure you guys get a newsletter on a weekly basis, letting you guys know everything that's going on. So make sure you subscribe to that. You can go to my website, marisolherrera.com, to get on our newsletter, and it'll basically update you on all things her. So if you haven't yet, come on over to Her Lounge Patreon. I'd love to have you. Patreon.com/Her Lounge Podcast. See you guys on Friday.